So we are back, and yes, I have now my light on, even though it's flinching for some reason, because it's getting dark outside. We have a storm here in Vegas. So, over the course of my life, I have experienced a lot of different wrestling shows, and as a psychologist, I sort of thought about breaking down the fan base, how the shows were run, what they did well and what they didn't, in one way or another. And I think the best way to start out is with pretty much the catalyst of current wrestling. If this company did not exist, we would not know Pentagon Jr., Ray Phoenix, Sexy Star. I don't think Jeff Cobb would be in the position that he was without Lucha Underground. Johnny Mundo got his resurgence within Lucha Underground, and it exposed Americans to a very different level of wrestling, and that is Lucha Libre. What I loved about Lucha Underground were that the characters felt like characters. You know, a 500-year-old zombie and literally a person who's killing people with Matanza Cuerto. Ray Phoenix rising literally from the ashes. Ricochet being a descendant of a warrior god. It's like that stuff was so cool. It was so over the top and ridiculous, and it was no other company was doing it in wrestling. And the one thing that they did not do correctly was how they did their contracts. I'm not going to go too much into it, but let's just say that there were a lot of lawsuits that were filed to El Rey. Personally, I have been to one Lucha Underground taping in my life. It was season 1. I'm not even sure if I was on camera, but I was doing these reviews as they were being shot, essentially live, like my live reactions to the shows, but I was actually at one of the tapings. The fans were kind of cool. I think I enjoyed it. There was a lot of great discussions, a lot of great open minds. I think there was a fight at some point because there was one drunk idiot. But overall, it definitely felt gritty, and I think that's what they were going for. I liked the interactions that the wrestling went with the people. I liked where it felt like fight night or a fight club. It was really cool. Overall, my experience with Lucha Underground was an Orange Cassidy thumbs up. And I only do Orange Cassidy thumbs up because of the contract issues that they had. Triple A. I did not go to a Triple A show directly, but there was a show here, I think like a year and a half ago. It was an indie promotion, but they had a ton of the Triple A competitors there. I think they had like Blue Demon Jr., oh God, who else did they have there? Alberto El Patron wrestled. There was a handful of them, and definitely a much different style than what I'm used to with Lucha. And my personal experience is it's not as in depth because I have not been to Mexico for wrestling, but I would like to. It would be really cool. I heard good things about the Triple A thing, but I'm getting into it, so take that with a grain of salt. I like Lucha. I think it's really cool, but keep in mind, it is a very different style of wrestling, so if you ever wanted to watch it, I recommend at least once. I recommend at least one time checking out Lucha in some way, shape, or form. It's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I think it does what it needs to do quite well. NWA, Southern Wrestling, and they keep that nostalgia on point. They have very minimal entrances. They don't do entrances for their regular shows, pretty much. When I was first starting watching the NWA Power regularly when they were reintroduced in 2018, 2019, like right before the pandemic, and I really wanted to go to one of the tapings, and I think they were doing it in Atlanta at the time, because I heard it was a lot of fun, and thank God they're coming back and doing shows again and doing them in different places. I don't see them coming to Vegas because I feel like the NWA is very much hard-hitting territory, and Las Vegas at the time that the NWA was where it was, it basically was a blip on the radar. It was not the mega powerhouse that it is now. It just wasn't. And keep in mind, Vegas, relative, is a young city. So I'm not even sure if it existed at the time. When I was in Colorado, and if the territory here, it was AWA. So I would like to go to a NWA show at some point in time. It will most likely happen in the future. And just like we do with Impact, I'll let you know the experience. JCW, Juggalo Championship Wrestling. This is the promotion that is run by the Insane Clown Posse. And I have been to a JCW show. It was at a dark carnival. Yes, I went to a dark carnival. So I went to school in Michigan. And the Insane Clown Posse is still quite popular out there. You'd be very surprised. And they do a dark carnival every year, I think. I think it's every year. It's either like every year or by year. I only went once because there was a girl that I was seeing at the time who liked going to those things, like different experiences. And I'm like, hey, that might be kind of fun. It was cleaner than I thought it was going to be. My expectations were like really, really low, but I did enjoy myself. I sold some art out there. I made some paintings and I did some drawings, and I sold some stuff out there. I'm like, might as well make some money. It was enough for like the trip out there and our lodging and all that fun stuff. I mean, there were definitely places where drugs and drinking were happening, like to a great deal of excess, but it was actually not as everywhere as I thought it was going to be. They were hitting each other with shit at one point, and then they had the ring set up, and there was probably maybe 150 people at this dark carnival, and it was a whole weekend thing. And I liked it. I enjoyed myself. It's definitely not my cup of tea for wrestling, but there was some action, and it was fine. I liked it overall. So I'm going to give that one Orange Cassidy thumbs up too. Not my favorite. Okay. CZW. I went to a Tournament of Death. I think it was the same year that I went to Dark Carnival, because I heard that it was brutal, like super brutal. I never heard of CZW up until that point. This was 2014. It was 2014 or 2015. I was still in college. I smelt like blood for an extra week. It wasn't like super strong, but people were like, "Man, you smell like metal." I'm like, I went to a wrestling event. So like, what is it called? Tournament of Death. I was front row. I was caked in other people's blood, just caked. I mean, this was literally the most mud show thing I've ever seen, but I enjoyed myself. I kind of like the experience. Would I ever go again? Maybe. I might. You never know. But I felt so disgusting because literally all over my face. I mean, those clothes, I literally threw them away. It was just so bad. Luckily, I went by myself. I didn't go with anybody. GCW, Game Changer Wrestling. I have never been to a GCW show. They do sign a lot of significant talent within the indie scene that I like. I would like to go. Well, that's the other company I didn't put on here. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. Kind of the same situation. If they come around, I want to at least go to one show. But, we'll kind of cross that bridge when we come to it. Once again, in this very indie hardcore with Game Changer, and then with Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, it's a little more traditional. Stardom. I kick myself today that I did not go to a Stardom show when I was in Japan. I go to Japan at least 2 or 3 times a year. I have some clients that I do art for that live out there, so it's a perfect opportunity to go out there. And I had an opportunity to go to a Stardom show, but that weekend was Wrestle Kingdom weekend, and the significant other that I was with at the time was so wrestled out. She was like, if I see anything wrestling for like a month, I'm going to like kill you. So I didn't invite her to go to anything else. I treated her fine after that. It was a lot of wrestling. I think that was her first experience with wrestling too. So it was a huge culture shock in a lot of different ways. And then from there, you go into this huge ass stadium to watch some wrestling. And this is when Wrestle Kingdom was only one night too. That was pretty fun. We stayed there for the whole weekend though. It was a really good time. I recommend going to Japan, even if you're not going to wrestling specific. Definitely go to Japan. Stardom. Anyway, I heard about Stardom. It wasn't the company that it is now. Definitely not. So it's definitely a different experience. But I do want to go. They're getting momentum back. They have been putting on awesome matches. And, within Japanese culture, very quiet, very respectful, except for sumo. It's just overall a good time. And speaking of the devil, let's go to the King of Sports, New Japan Pro Wrestling. I have been to 2 Wrestle Kingdoms. And when wrestling happens there, it happens. It's mainstream. They're pseudo-celebrities, definitely. And you would not get that impression with how they present themselves here. So I went to a couple of shows in Japan, and then I went to a New Japan show when they did Autumn Attack here in Vegas. And when they were here in Vegas, it was at Sam's Town. Not the biggest place. There was probably 300 people there. But the shows that I went to, obviously Wrestle Kingdom has a ton of people. And they do, 2,000 or 3,000 for each show when they go and do a show there. It is a much different world. I recommend if you're going to go to Japan for Wrestle Kingdom, definitely do it, but go a couple of days before the event. Because especially coming from America, it is a totally different world. And you need that time to get acclimated to the environment. And I cannot stress that enough. If you try to do all of that all at the same time, you are going to be so burnt out and horribly sick. I did that before. I got some great advice, and I just recommend doing it. I just recommend going to Japan. New Japan fans are, once again, very respectful, and they're also very professional. So don't try to be a mark around them. Treat them with respect, especially the wrestlers, and they will treat you in kind. But also when you talk with other wrestling fans there, in my experience, it was a serious conversation. Don't try to debate, because then they will shoot you down immediately. And trust me, that kind of respect thing is very big out there, and you gotta be careful, because you don't know who you're talking to out there. It's crazy. Impact. Impact is my favorite show to go live. It was my first exposure to non-WWE wrestling in my entire life back in 2006, because I was still to this day, I'm an enormous fan of Kurt Angle. And when I heard that he was going to this TNA, I'm like, I'll check it out. It was my first experience outside of that. So I was so excited when they were on Spike. I watched it every single Thursday. I think at the time it was on Thursday. Yeah, it was on Thursday. It was just great. I still have a love for Impact. I think they put on good shows. I like how they do the system where they will tape like 4 or 5 shows for over the course of 3 days. And then the wrestlers can just go and wrestle wherever else that they want to, or do whatever else that they want to. They wrestle for 1 weekend for Impact. So it's cool. Now, let me talk to you after the fact, because every time that they come here, they go to Sam's Town. And after a lot of the wrestlers go out for a drink at TGI Fridays, so Peanut Gallery and I, we go there, we have dinner at TGI Fridays. I know, not the best choice, but it's Sam's Town, and TGI Fridays is a safe bet. Go to the shows, go back to the bar, and then you're sitting next to the wrestlers, and you get to talk to them. It was really cool. Peanut Gallery talked with Tommy Dreamer and that mega Impact fan. That was the last time that we saw with Impact, and that was, it was a long time ago. They need to come back. But please go to an Impact show. It is so much fun. Lots to do. And the prices are fairly inexpensive. You get your bang for your buck, and then the meet and greets are super easy to get into. You pay, you get some pictures, you get some autographs. It's a good time. If you do decide to hang out with them after the show, do not be a mark. Do not try to get an autograph for free, please. It is disrespectful to their craft, and treat them like a human. You will get a lot farther that way. But definitely recommend it. It's great. Now, WWE was not the one, but I will be talking about AEW. WWE, biggest company. I have been to 3 WrestleManias. I have been to at least half a dozen other pay-per-views. And I have gone to, I swear to God, like 30. 30? Yeah. Every time they went to Denver, they would go to Denver once a year. And every time that they go, my dad always got tickets for me until I could buy it myself. And then when I was in Michigan, they were there more frequently. So I went to pretty much every show there. House shows, live shows, everything. And here in Vegas, they haven't been in a couple of months, but I went last time to the SmackDown tapings at T-Mobile Arena. I did not have the opportunity to go to Money in the Bank because it was in Allegiant. I went to SummerSlam in Allegiant. That was awesome, but I really went there for seeing Allegiant more than the show itself, but it was awesome. It's a great experience. I recommend it, absolutely. The fans of WWE are very casuals. There are a lot of families. Generally, the kids are the ones who want to talk to you about wrestling. Give them the time of day. It ain't that big of a deal. Don't be mean to the kids. You know, they're there to have a good time. They want to talk about wrestling with somebody else, and it's like, hey, I'll spare a couple of minutes. The adults are fine. I don't think I've seen like a huge WWE mark in a long time. Not one at least that's hostile. But, you know, don't be an ass. It's WWE. You're there to watch the wrestling and have a good time. And I think if you go into the show with that perspective in mind, you're just going to have a good time every time. Even if the show sucks. It's the experience of going to a WWE event. It's the experience of going to any event. Now, I saved the best for last. AEW. Before I even go into it, I don't hate AEW. In fact, I like AEW. I was so happy that they came aboard. But what they are now is not what they were in 2019. The magic is not there anymore. It is very cookie cutter. It does not have that same passion that it had before. Sometimes it's hard to watch it because I knew what it was. And every Dynamite was awesome. It felt very gritty. There was a lot of passion. This is not there anymore. And also, Tony Khan and the wrestlers were not as hostile now as they were back then. They're just not. There was just a lot of love and passion with it. And Tony Khan, for the most part, kept his mouth shut. And then he started opening his mouth, putting his foot in it. And now his fans are a cult. If you know the pop and punk music scene, you probably heard of Blood on the Dance Floor. They're a mid-band. I don't like them personally, but I see the appeal. I was a goth kid one day. I have never been threatened with my life, threatened my family's lives, threatened to be beaten up, go to my house, do whatever they need to do, more than the hardcore AEW cult. It is a very small minority that speak this way. I cannot have a conversation with anybody who is an AEW fan, who's part of the cult. I can't. Because unless I agree with everything that they agree with, to the gnat's ass, it's hostility. And it's like, that is not how this works. Dialogue needs to happen. And look, What they're doing with All In is awesome. And I'm proud that they had the numbers that they did. Let's see if there was actually 80,000 people in that building. Also, how do you know if that number is accurate? I had a discussion with somebody on Twitter, or now X, about this. It's like, if WWE fudges their numbers, what is stopping AEW for doing the exact same thing? What? AEW does not have to show their numbers. WWE does. They have to have conference calls. They're a publicly traded company. They have to be transparent. I have not seen a revenue number for AEW year after year. The only number that I can go on are Nielsen reports and demo, because that is the standard on if the company is successful or not, because television will run the business. Year after year, demo and ratings have gone down on averages. And don't say that those don't matter. Tell me what does. It is a business. And I'm happy that AEW exists. It gives people places to work. But this is not rocket science. And you have to treat it, if you want a discussion, if you want to be taken seriously as a fan, you have to keep yourself open like this. Let me explain to you what I am. I am a fan of professional wrestling. I went through this huge list of different companies that have different styles, that have had controversies, that have done this and that. But I love it, every single company. Why? Because it's wrestling. I like wrestling. I like the action. I appreciate the wrestlers putting their bodies on the line. This is voluntary. They cooperate. And the trust that they have within their rosters, with their respective rosters and locker rooms, is something definitely to uphold. Think about it. I am a wrestler and you are a wrestler. We are in a match. You are trusting me to make sure that you do not get injured. I am responsible for your bodily autonomy. I don't want to paralyze you. I don't want to break your arm. I'm going to make sure that I am trained to the best of my ability and we cooperate to put together a good, compelling match. We tell a story in the ring. We communicate and make sure that we take care of each other. And I think that's why I like wrestling, for the pageantry, the production, the history, the different styles of wrestling. Look at what we went through from CMLL to New Japan, or CMLL. From Lucha Libre to New Japan to Japanese wrestling to strong style to hardcore to women specifically to men and everything in between. Much different styles, much different people, and that's what I love about it. It's a versatility. It's the costumes, it's the visuals, it's the lighting. If they have pyro, it's the pyro. However they present it, I love it all. And I will probably continue to be a wrestling fan for the rest of my life at this point. I'm 29. I've been watching wrestling since I was 7, 8. And it's seldom that I've ever stopped watching wrestling. Ever. I've had significant others who wanted me to stop watching wrestling. They were not a significant other at that point. You do not change me. And anybody who believes that they can take a wrestling fan away from something that they enjoy watching, you should be fucking ashamed of yourself. It's wrestling. It's like somebody who likes football, like somebody who likes MMA. I like those things, but wrestling was my first. And it's going to continue to be so, pretty much. Well, that's it. Coming up next, we are going to be watching the Jarrett, Jeff Hardy match from last week. Because trust me, you're going to absolutely die with it.